Battlefield 6 is set to come out in late 2021, and with the state of Battlefield 5 and how it has left the community so divided, including going to other games and older titles, this game needs to be an absolute smash hit with everyone. It needs to be good for the community and a broader audience overall. So hopefully we get to see those things, but today I want to go over 5 things that this game needs to succeed in 2021. Before we start, remember that if you enjoy the video, remember you leave it a nice, juicy, and delicious like, and if you want more content like this, then make sure you subscribe. So let's jump into this list. What is the first thing? This game needs to be set in an era where helicopters exist. So unless you count the prototype helicopter in the Firestorm mode that nobody plays anymore, the past 2 titles have not had any helicopters in them. This is somewhat okay in BF1 because you do have things like the airship where you can kind of drop into places. It doesn't totally replace a helicopter and what a helicopter is capable of on the battlefield, but it was a nice fill-in for gameplay purposes. It's just another fun thing that you can use to attack from the air. But like I said, helicopters are kind of their own thing. They're very fast, they can zip around the map, and they can also deal out damage, as well as transport friendly soldiers to objective areas and be able to help you win the match a lot easier. This means that we should see an era anywhere from the Cold War up until modern day. Now, which one of those you want is totally opinion. I think either one of those would be an awesome experience for a Battlefield game, but let me know which era you want down below. Next up is going to be fast vehicles. The past 2 Battlefield titles have had pretty slow vehicles, especially the tanks. Well, in BF1, it wasn't totally a problem because you kind of have to understand that it's World War I. These tanks are going to be slow. Having them be fast would be kind of weird, and it wouldn't make a lot of sense. In Battlefield 5, they should have been significantly faster. Instead, they're still pretty slow. And that means when you have a tank in an area where it's trying to push and take an objective, and it's not very heavily armored, and it's getting hammered by dynamite and rockets and things like that, and it can't escape very fast, that means that it's going to go down very fast, and it also means that the next time that person jumps in a tank, they're not going to push the objective and they're just going to sit back and tank snipe, which means the gameplay tends to suffer. If these tanks are faster, they can still be taken out by a skilled squad of assault players, but it's fast enough to where a smart tank driver can get out of that situation easily without having to worry about that my only viable option is tank sniping. Like, that is not a fun way to play the game. It leads to a lot of unfun deaths. It leads to a lot of unfun situations, and the next game just needs to have faster vehicles. Next up at number 3 is going to be a gun bench. The gun bench is very important in my opinion because the past 2 titles have had very shallow gun customization. Battlefield 1 only had the variants of different weapons, but you couldn't customize each one aside from what skin was on it. And Battlefield 5 didn't have any attachments. Instead, it had things called specializations, which was not a very deep way to customize your weapon. You had 4 options on each side of a spec tree, and that was it. Going all the way back to Battlefield 4, you already have a lot more options and a much deeper way to customize your weapons, and hopefully something like that comes back. Now, that gun bench was a bit ahead of its time. Now we have Modern Warfare's type of gun bench, and that one is really fascinating because I'm trying to think of a way of how something similar to that could work in Battlefield. Obviously, you have the conversions in Modern Warfare where you can convert weapons into different weapons, so you can take an AK-47 and make it an AK-47U. Those are really cool conversions, but I'm trying to think of a way that that could work in Battlefield, and I think that maybe you could take your universal weapons, whatever classes they decide are going to be their universal weapons. Maybe those are the guns that have the conversions, so some of those guns you can convert into, say, if DMRs are the universal weapons, maybe you can convert it down to an assault rifle, or you can convert it up to a sniper rifle. Maybe you can take it down to a carbine or something along those lines. I'm just kind of spitballing here as to how they could do that, but I think the universal weapon class, which I would hope comes back if it's a modern or Cold War set title. Hopefully that is something that comes back, and maybe that can be how they work in those kinds of conversions on the gun bench. Aside from that, just having a lot of attachment options and a deep way to customize your weapons would just be nice to have, even if you don't have things like the conversions in there. I think it would just be really nice to have that deep customization, put on any number of attachments that you want onto any weapon, and just offer that awesome feeling of having your very unique weapon on the battlefield. Next up is community servers. This one is very important because the community in Battlefield is very, very important. It's the reason this game has such a passion behind it, and having community servers is very important. Now, Battlefield 5 famously didn't have community servers for the first year of its life, but they did end up coming, and they were free. They didn't cost any money like in previous titles, so you would think, oh well, that's a total win, they're free, we don't have to pay for them anymore. Well, there's always a catch with Battlefield 5, and that is that the features that came along with these are basically non-existent, and then of course these servers are not very stable as well. So essentially in BF5 all you could do was set a custom map playlist, and that's really it as far as I know. I haven't really explored it much more, but that was the last time I actually checked it out. Hopefully maybe with this last update they'll add a few more features to it, but I really doubt it. In fact, a lot of the community guys are going to older Battlefield titles, if not to other games like Modern Warfare, to be able to have their community events, because even though you pay for those servers in the older games, you do have a ton of features that you can set on those games, and it just provides a really awesome setting for communities to be able to actually have a good time together and keep those tight-knit clans and platoons together, because that is what makes up the Battlefield franchise. Lastly, and I think this is the most important one, and I don't even know if you can really call it a feature, but a functioning game. The game just needs to function. A lot of Battlefield titles come out broken. They have a lot of bugs, a lot of glitches, they're not very stable. But this game needs to come out and have a smooth launch. It needs to be polished upon launch. The huge issue with Battlefield 5 is a lot of people that are like, okay, the game is buggy, it's broken at launch, but you know what, they're definitely going to fix it. Well, it turns out they never actually fixed it. And that broke a lot of trust with the community along with several other things, but the game needs to come out and be functioning on launch. It needs to have all the features it needs on launch. It needs to have smoke grenades that aren't duds on launch. It needs to have a good netcode on launch. This is just something that needs to be there on launch. And honestly, I don't think that this should be something that the community is requesting. It should just be how the game comes out anyway. But because DICE has such a track record of releasing these buggy games, especially the most recent one, which still hasn't been fixed, and I really doubt it's going to be completely fixed after the last update, this game needs to be polished. It needs to come out completely polished. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect. There's not going to be zero bugs at all. They're going to happen, but the game needs to function in a smooth way. Like I said, it needs to be polished. That's all. I think that's the least the community should be asking for. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the list. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, let me know what features you want to see down below. Did you agree with my list or not? And I will see you guys in the next video.